Happy New Year, everybody, and welcome to a video sponsored by Lumix and to the year 2020. Can you believe that? The year 2020. I don't know why I'm welcoming you to the year. Actually, I don't own it. I've not even got 2020 vision. Anyway, I have zero hopes or expectations for this video going in any way viral, so I imagine most of you will watch it in its first few days, but at least a handful of you will see it probably after that, at a time that's nothing like New Year, and therefore I should probably talk about something else, maybe photography related, given that this is a photography channel. JPEGs? Now, if you've been around digital photography for any amount of time, you'll know that JPEGs in the photography community have a bit of a bad rep. And typically what you'll find from most photography instruction is that people will tell you that you should shoot RAW as opposed to JPEG. If you don't know the difference, RAW images, they're basically a file full of data that's yet to be processed. It's kind of like having loads of ingredients that you haven't cooked yet, and you can do what you want with those ingredients to end up with lots of different meals. So you can bring down the highlights, pull up the shadows, completely change the white balance, do loads and loads of stuff because there's lots of data within that file. A JPEG has already been processed, and therefore there's less you can do with that file because lots of the data has been thrown away in order to compress that file. So a JPEG is just much less versatile than a RAW file, and for that reason people suggest that you should shoot RAW. Now most of the time I shoot RAW myself, but sometimes I shoot RAW plus JPEG, particularly when I'm shooting people. And the reason that I bother doing that is to do with editing. So, you know when you're watching TV and you might be eating at the same time as watching whatever's on TV, but whatever is on TV is super engrossing to the point where you finish your food, but you don't even know what you've had because you haven't really tasted it. All you've been doing is just watching the TV and not concentrating on anything else. It's like when I watch Jurassic Park, I get so engrossed in it that I genuinely become concerned about dinosaurs. Now, I found that most photographers that I've met, whether they're just starting out in their photography journey or they're experienced professionals, get engrossed to exactly the same level when they're studying their photos and editing them. And the problem with doing that is that you can kind of, we can lose perspective. And when I'm editing photos and I'm that deep into the photo, I kind of forget about all the reality that surrounds that photo. And the problem with that is that you end up sometimes with a photo that doesn't look real in any way because you're so engrossed in what you're seeing in front of you that you forget what's real. Like the dinosaurs. So yeah, that is a particularly common problem, particularly to people who are new to editing photos. You've all seen photos that you've edited earlier in your photography journey and thought, oh my word, what was I thinking? So there are a couple of suggestions to avoid this. The first is to never, ever, ever do anything with your photos immediately after you've finished editing them. Finish editing a photo, go away and bake a cake or something, come back to it and reassess what you think of it when you've had a dose of reality again. And regardless of how experienced you are, you might be surprised just how many times you get back to your desk and find that the photo you edited that you thought looked good actually looks underwhelming or over edited. So yeah, don't put your photos on your website or on your social media immediately after editing them. The trouble with that process is that you have to keep coming back to your computer and baking lots and lots of cakes, and it all takes a lot of time. The other thing that I like to do, especially as I said when I'm editing portraits because of skin tones and stuff, is I like to have a JPEG in view while I'm editing a RAW file, because for all their faults, JPEGs typically have had lots and lots of work put into them by the camera manufacturers in terms of processing, the algorithms that go into those JPEGs, and more often than not, they look two things. They look vibrant and realistic. And even if you want to take your edit in a completely different direction to the JPEG that you have, it can serve as a great reference point for what is real, and it can help you not lose touch with reality. So how does that look in reality? Well, it can work a few different ways, to be honest. You could print out a JPEG and just have it somewhere about your desk while you're editing a photo. You could have the JPEG on your phone, or you could do what I like to do in Lightroom, which is use reference view. So if you've not used reference view before, basically it enables you to have two files side by side in the develop module so that you can look at a JPEG in theory and look at a RAW while you're editing it, both at the same time, and I'll show you how to do that. So basically go to the develop module, you'll need the tool toolbar open, so if it's not, press T on your keyboard, I think it is, and in this corner down here you'll see an R and an A, and that stands for reference and active. If you click that, like so, you, well actually I've ended up with the JPEG as the active one, which I don't want. I want the RAW as the active, which I've just done, and then I can drag this JPEG file into the film strip, and why is that a different size? Okay, there we go. So now I have a JPEG as a reference file and the RAW file as my active file, and I can start to make adjustments to the RAW file as I see fit, like so. Now it may be that my dream final result is very close to how the JPEG came out, but I'd always choose to edit the RAW file because then I can make tweaks from that JPEG much more easily. Not from the JPEG, but things that I see in the JPEG can be tweaked much more easily in the RAW. So if I want to bring down the vibrance or whatever it might be. So I'll always edit the RAW file. And I can do all that at the same time as having the JPEG for reference right next to the file that I'm editing. And that has been a real godsend, to be honest. Over the last couple of years I've been using this because, well, as I say, particularly with people, when you've got skin tones and you edit them enthusiastically, they can very quickly look horrendous. So yeah, that's reference view, and that's why I use it and why sometimes I shoot RAW plus JPEG. And if you're a beginner photographer, I'd recommend doing this all the time. I do love that photo of Emily. Took it in Australia in the Yarra Valley just over a year ago. In 2018 though, which makes it seem longer ago because it was the end of 2018 and now's the start of 2020, you don't care. Anyway, thanks for watching, hopefully that was useful, and thanks to Lumix and my G9 for sponsoring this video.